try harder than that.
We're outnumbered!
The payload has reached the checkpoint.
Mercy on call. Not a second wind!
What is that melody?
Enemies re-engaging. Efficient design at work. You need this.
Oh, there is method in this madness.
Yes!
But like Zarya is insanely unfun to play against because she literally negates everything. Like she's just not fun. But I get the Ryan mains and the Roadhog mains because they're terrible right now.
Interesting. This is not quite going how I planned.
I know. I actually think supports are insanely strong.
Okay, you know what? I do too. Well, like, I do too because of the support passive, which does encapsulate or generalize
Yes, the
everything. That
support
didn't
passive,
exist in Overwatch 1. I remember I rewatched some old Overwatch 6v6 footage, and I'm like, man, I got tickled down by a Tracer as an Ana, and I'm like sitting at 110 health for like way too long. I'm like, do I nade myself? Like burning your nade for yourself was so bad back then if you had to do it, and like, you know, it was just completely different. So I do think that passive was very strong.
Yeah, I do.
Off,
but no, you're good. I also think that like without the passive, because like in the beginning of, well, I guess they still had the passive in the beginning of Overwatch 2, but they were like so bad in the beginning of Overwatch 2 because of how it played and how easy it was to just dive supports. And
what was
Ana
it again in the beginning?
I don't remember, but Ana just felt terrible to play. I remember.
I think that was like,
I think it was 2
because
seconds.
the game was new. I think it was the same. It was just 2 seconds before it kicked in. Everyone's like, yeah, it's whatever.
Yeah.
This passive doesn't feel great because DPS, it was overshadowed by the DPS passive at the time, which was good.
Yeah,
which was the movement
that's what
speed.
it was, yeah.
Everyone's like, wow, the support passive feels like shit compared to that. And I think it was just
Plus
a
dive was
perception
strong.
thing.
Dive was strong. They had nerfed some aspects like Ana's sleep and stuff. And we obviously didn't have as many supports as we did. One of those new supports being my man Life Weaver, Poger. You are the tank main converted. Are you gonna defend the support category, or are you also in agreement that maybe some of the supports are overtuned and perhaps the support kits in general are very, very strong? Yes. Yes,
Alright.
perfect.
I think that support is the most relaxing role in the game. I can tell you from experience, from playing tank and playing support. Playing support is so chill. Like, It is so relaxing, especially if you play Life Viewer or something like that. You're just vibing, bro. You're just chilling. Playing tank is so stressful. I hate playing tank. Like, you've already had your tank debate, so I won't talk about it too much. But like, I don't know if support is broken or not. There's some supports that are really strong, but the sheer pressure you have when you're playing tank compared to when you're playing support is just not equal. Like, I some of you probably will disagree with me, but when you play tank, there's so many heroes that can counter you for any tank hero you pick, for anything. Even if you play Zarya, Life Viewer can just counter every single ult you get. People can just go Bastion, Bastion just counters every tank basically, and it's just so annoying, right? But when you play support, what counters Life Weaver? Sombra sucks against him. What counters Larry? No, nothing counters Larry, and then you have a second support that can peel for you. And you're just chilling, you know, like especially if you deal with another support player, you're just vibing the entire game. I've dealt with ML a lot. I've had zero pressure on me throughout all of the games. Yeah, sometimes you get dove, but you can easily outplay getting. You can easily outplay dives. You easily can outplay them if you just are smart about it. Like in Overwatch 1, what would happen a lot is people would get hard focused when they played support by dive. You know, Winston Diva, Tracer, Genji, they would constantly dive you. You would die. You didn't have your support passive. Like Kark, said, you had to waste an ability to heal yourself. Right now, with the support passive, you're one-man army, right? Like, you can't kill the entire team, not always. Sometimes you can if you play Laurie or if you play Baptiste. But most of the time, you're just chilling. Like, there isn't anything that can actually counter. You can pick any support, in my opinion. Some support combos are really bad, obviously. But most of the time, you can go anything and still win the game. Like, as long as you play well, as long as your team is not throwing the game, you can win the game. And I think that is the main reason why support is being played so much more than tank, because I can do whatever I want in support. I can go on a Life Weaver, I can go on a Zen, even though it's a little bit scuffed. I can go Life Weaver Larry, I can go Life Weaver whatever. It can work. But if your tank goes the wrong tank in the wrong situation, you just lose the game, because he's just getting hard counting, and that's it. And it never happens when you play support. It's just so much more chill to play support.
Okay, so we're getting a picture that comment section are not going to be happy about. The comment section, I can hear it now. SCD, what is this fucking shit? I'm a support player. It's fucking hard. These tank players are whining, and you gotta cast the support players role, saying the role is a bit too much. SK, I don't think you're gonna change the trend. But how do you feel, just in general, big picture on support?
I'm sorry to make it so everyone has the same opinions, but I do think a lot of support has a couple heroes that are probably the most powerful in the game, and it's super chill to play too, like Logan said. Whenever I'm playing poorly, like my aim is really bad on the day, I'm losing a lot of games on DPS, I just don't want to think anymore. I go support and I just win in like top 100 fucking round. Wait, am I allowed to curse? I'm sorry.
Yeah, of course you are. I curse plenty.
But like, heroes like Bap, Ana, Ilari, Kiri, or Brig, I think just have way too much impact. It's really funny playing Lucio now, and sad honestly, because it's just like, man, if I was asleep at my keyboard playing a different hero, I would be getting more value than I am right now playing like I'm God's gift to Overwatch on this hero. It's, hold on, I have to go.
It's okay. Take your time.
Okay. Lately, I've been playing Ilari, Yadi, and out damage dealing my DPS. I feel a little guilty about it, because I'm a person that plays all of the roles. Like, every season I put in hundreds of games on each role, so I think I'm really in tune with like how powerful or how fun to play each role is. Support is what I do when I want to have fun and chill and like have easy games. DPS feels terrible right now. And moving on to the tank thing with the great tank debate, I'm going to say skill issue or hero issue with whatever their complaints are, because I have been playing tank this season. I've been top 100 for the last like 60 games. I haven't noticed anything they're talking about. Like, if I'm having trouble, I simply swap. That is it. Like, if you play the right hero in the right situations, you can 1v2 anyone. You can delete everything, you do more damage than DPS, plus you have a huge health bar. You're literally a raid boss.
I was gonna say, you can do high damage. Everyone says you just have to sit there and take it, but that's just like 2 or 3 tanks. Like SK, which tanks do you play that can cook like the damage numbers? Queen,
This
right?
season,
Zarya.
I'm playing Zarya. I'm playing a lot of Zarya. I was playing Queen before, but as I get higher, you have to be really good at her to get values, and I'm not as good as her as I need to be. Orisa actually just melts people. If
You actually
use
do
your
so much
spear
damage on Orisa.
switches,
You actually do
yeah,
so much damage on
you just
Orisa,
delete
actually.
people.
And you're hard to
But
kill, too.
it does suck. My complaint is not about supports, it's about DPS. If the other team goes Bastion and Mei, I simply cannot play the game anymore as tank. And I don't think that has anything to do with supports. But like literally Zarya, I have 1v4 the other team provided their tank is dead. Like, it's ridiculous. Wait,
Ooh.
I have more to say.
Yeah.
It's okay. You can take your time to think about it. We can also
I
come to it
forgot.
later. We can come to it later. There'll be
Wait,
plenty.
I remembered. I'm
Oh yeah,
sorry.
go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
But I have noticed if I have bad supports, I cannot play the game. If my supports are playing suboptimal support comp, like lately a lot of my supports have been playing Mercy Yachty, I do not get to play the game. It is, I think tank can go from the most fun experience in the game to the most boring experience in the game simply from having bad supports or the other team picking Bastion Mei or Bastion Sim. But I will also say, I remember when Overwatch 2 first came out, most support players felt like it was a super underpowered role and were complaining a lot. I was not one of them. I will
Neither
say
was
that
I.
now. But I wonder what changed since then. Maybe those people are still saying the same thing. Who knows?
There's three
I
new supports
said
that came
that,
out
and I'm not
during that
saying the same
debate.
thing.
Yeah, there's three
Okay, so-
support. When
so-
people are saying that during the beta, we've literally had 3 new supports
Yeah, that was
enter.
really early Overwatch.
So yeah,
2.
Emmy, let's
Yeah.
let's elaborate then. So we've kind of, unfortunately, established a precedent that all of you kind of roughly agree support is very powerful, very good state, which is not a bad thing. You know, we don't have to arbitrarily pretend that support is weak if everyone who plays the role and whose opinions I respect feel like it isn't and feel like it's very strong. To quickly add in my own experience as well, I got GM1 on support the other day, mostly playing BAP and Ana. So I think I also agree that like the value you get is insane. Like the amount of impact. When I play support, I've also been flexing other roles and it's like super miserable. This meta I think is particularly egregious, as SK pointed out. I think like I see a lot of Bastion for Hanzo type shit, and it's like when you're the other DPS, if you don't like mirror, you just lose because it's like you can't go. I like playing like Tracer and Genji. I like playing like heroes that require my brain to be on, not just like spamming at a corner. And you just get rolled by spam and people just shoving shit in your face. So it's a very obnoxious meta, I think, which has exacerbated a lot of these issues. And I think for tanks it's the same thing. It's like if they're running like Bastion Mei, if you said SK, it's like you just don't get to play the game. So I think there's a lot of compounding factors. But support I think feels great. Support I feel is like how the other roles should feel. Because whenever I play support, I come away at the end of a game and I'm like, if I lose, I'm like, okay, I could have changed this fight, I could have changed that fight, I could have done this, I could have done that. When I play tank, sometimes I'll drop like 40 to 2, lose the game, and I'll be like, I have no fucking idea what possibly I could, like, I can't do everything in this game. And same with DPS sometimes, you just feel like there's nothing much you could have done, even if, you know, obviously I'm not a god. But, all that being said, I want to unpack the sort of the evolution of the support, how we got here, and also maybe like what is fair, what is unfair about this state of support, and what maybe we can learn from it for if we want to help the other roles too. So Amy, I want to come to you, what you said about you were one of those people who felt like in the beta the support was underpowered. I think a lot of people said that clearly. I know SK and Karki, you said you didn't. I'm going to assume Boger also didn't. But what was your feeling? Why did you feel like support felt really unfun or underpowered?
I don't even think that they were underpowered. I think it was the way that the game was playing. Like Ana couldn't keep up because Ana couldn't keep up with the fights because she didn't have any mobility. And it was just like any support that had mobility was the best support to play. And it just didn't feel good to have to play specifically not Ana because she couldn't move. I don't remember. I think it was just the meta at the time. Maybe like dive was really good, and yeah, I don't know. She just didn't have.
It was Winston. It was Lucio Kiriko. I remember. or something
Yeah.
like that. And then Mercy, and then Mercy Kiriko for the Sojourn pocket. Well, Mercy's pretty mobile. Kiriko's mobile. Lucio's mobile. But it
Well,
was
even
Lucio
Mercy
Kiriko.
could get chased down though. I think it was probably Kiriko. No, even I think it was even before Kiri. I don't remember. I have bad memory. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, Kiri came out with the game though in October. I swear.
Yeah, so Kiriko came out with the game, and you were right. At the pro level, I believe it was Kiriko, Lucio, and
But
then
also
the Reaper.
beta felt really terrible, specifically.
Yeah, so the complaints came during the beta, which is where, like, so I think I want to paint this picture because I think what the narrative that I see a lot is that supports complained at the start of Overwatch 2 as in the beta, that they were underpowered, that they were unloved. They've been gradually buffed and had new heroes introduced, and now they've gotten to a point where everybody else is suffering. So I do want to unpack that. So you're right, Emilith, in that it was the first beta when I remember Ana was being played at the pro levels, like Ana, Winston Dive with Genji I think was strong, and Soldier I think was strong back then with some buffs that he'd gotten. But I remember this complaint. Lucio was like the strongest support in the game because he could actually like duel and survive. So yeah, so talk me through, like, you felt it was very punishing and you felt like it was just, it didn't feel like what you wanted to play.
Yeah, it was like you just pretty much had to fend for yourself as Ana, it felt like, because the game moves so fast. Like Overwatch 2 was a lot faster when it first came out compared to Overwatch 1. So like you just had to adjust so much more quickly, and I think it made it really hard for Ana because she didn't have like the movement abilities that other characters have to keep up with the pace of the game.
Right.
And then now, I'm not, I guess just because the meta changed is probably why Ana feels better now, but I'm not sure.
I mean, a lot has changed. It's hard to track individually.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember if there was like a specific turning point. Maybe the DPS passive. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, well, there's been a lot changed. I mean, Boger, from your POV, how have you viewed the evolution of support from what we had in beta to where we have now? Like, how have you viewed that change? Do you think it's like steps in the right direction, or do you think like actually they've maybe made some missteps along the way?
I think support was good since launch. I think it's still pretty good. I think the addition of the new heroes have, you know, shaken up things a lot. But it's really hard to pinpoint whether or not there are steps in the right direction. I think the new support heroes are phenomenal. I think Kiriko and Laurie and Lifeweaver, they all fit the niche. They're all so fun to play for the people that want to play them. I think it's really cool the design they've made behind those characters. In that sense, I think it's in the right direction. But there's a lot of things I really despise about support, and this is the tank within me that really hates it. I really don't like the direction of... Back in the day when I played Overwatch 1, a lot of things that would happen was I would dive an Ana and I would have to outplay the Ana sleep dart and grenade. You know, when I'm playing Winston, I had to do this and that to counter her abilities, and she had to outplay me so she could sleep me, and there's a lot of back and forth. Now with support, what happens is you land an ability, it gets cleansed. It's like a lot of that depth, a lot of that counterplay in the sense that a lot of that thinking that you have to put into executing a good play is gone. Yeah, you can wait for the Suzu. Yeah, you can wait for those abilities. Right now, what's really annoying is with Laurie's pylon. I am diving the pylon on Winston instead of diving the supports. It is so obnoxious. There's no counterplay to it in the sense that, oh, I'll do this and that so I can counter the pylon not getting placed in that place. I need to dive the pylon, and then I need to dive the supports. That is so annoying. It is not annoying for anyone else. It's really fun for the support player. Don't get me wrong. I know it's fun. It's really annoying when I'm playing really well with Ryan, for example, or I land a really big slam, or I start juggling someone, or like I'm about to, you know, I've played all of my cards right, they suit it right. And for a lot of people, they're gonna be like, oh, you need to counterplay the Susan, you need to bait it out. Yeah, well, it sucks. It sucks in the sense that back in the day, I will say it again, there was a lot of back and forth between supports. With Baptiste as well, he was one of the most annoying supports because he could counter your play after it happened by just placing a lamp. I hate that. I wish we would go back to... Oh, Lifeweaver as well. I've been playing against Lifeweaver a lot on tank. Let me tell you, that guy is annoying. As a Lifeweaver play, that guy sucks. He's so annoying because there is no steps to take to counter his abilities. All you can do is bait out the ability, and that cannot happen by itself. You know, your team needs to help you with that, or you need to do something and then wait or execute something else. But it's so annoying to execute a good play and for it to get Suzu, for it to get Lifeweaver pulled, for it to get you know, lamp, it is so like it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart. It goes for any role. Like if I'm playing Lari and I ult with Lari, it just gets Suzu. It's so annoying. It's at least with Matrix, you can outplay the Matrix. You can be like, oh okay, I'm gonna bait out the Matrix. I'm gonna wait it out. It's like, oh he's not using it. Now I throw it. There's some counterplay. I'm gonna bait out the Winston double, then I'm gonna throw it. With Suzu, it's just like, oh I threw it out. That's it. It's over. I'll outplay it. It's done. And again, you can say you can just wait it out. You can bait it out. But again, it's just such a boring, counterplay to that. There's a lot of rant about it, but that is my thought.
Yeah, baiting stuff out is nothing new though, but I do think it's because like tanks have they have that one less person to eat a cooldown for you, so the game has actually become more team centric than anything in a 5v5 environment, simply because one less person to take some of the support cooldowns away. I mean, Lamp existed in Overwatch 1, right? And like break stuns and like, if you weren't taking, if one of your tanks had to take one of the stuns, then like the other person is free to do whatever. So like, I will say, yeah, tanks have to like, consider a lot more in this version of the game, which indirectly makes supports feel more powerful disproportionately to the tank players, because as a Winston, it's really hard for you to get the pylon, so now you have to tell your other DPS to find an angle to break the pylon, like the Tracer or somebody to do it. But like in the 6v, if we had a 6v6, I don't know why we're getting to the 6v6 5v5 thing, but
You went there.
This does play into like probably why supports feel stronger, to be honest with you. Like if you're playing two different tanks, if you don't go for the pylon, somebody else is, so you have two tanks taking space, it opens up an angle for your defense to take out the pylon. If that were the case, you know what I mean?
So really quick.
Well, I want to say something.
Yeah.
For everything that Overwatch 2 does, a lot of their characters are focused on the individual, and it's no longer about team play, and I think it's very obvious. So it's really annoying when you have to play old characters that were designed around team play. Like Winston, I remember on Soldier Soul, for example, said something about it. You need 3 charged shots to kill a pylon, and it's impossible if you're on Reinhardt, for example. There's these old characters, and it's just so annoying to deal with these new abilities that are centered around the solo play of Overwatch 2, because Junker Queen is solo centered, Kiriko is solo centered, Lari is solo centered. Most of the characters they're supposed to exist without the help of the team, and it's just so obnoxious. I agree with what Kark you said. I just, in a sense, I wish we added a lot more complexity to things, if it makes sense. Like for example, Ana is such a great character. I love Ana. And I'm not saying the new supports are bad. They're so fun to play. They're awesome to play. But I wish they added a character that added complexity and layers to stuff. Like Sleep Dart is so awesome. I love Sleep Dart. Anyone that complains about Sleep Dart, they're so stupid. And anyone who complains about...
Comment section's not gonna like that.
I would care about the comments. Anyone that complains about Nate are stupid as well. You can counter Nate in so many ways. You can counter Sleep Dart in so many ways. And it takes brain cells to actually do it, right? And it's so fun when you outplay Diana. And so fun for Diana when they outplay you. And that is so awesome. You don't have that anymore. You just have to, either you bait out the cooldown or you don't. You can't counterplay the Suzu. You can't, you can eat it or whatever, It's just so annoying. Or the pylon. That is... Or Life Weaver Pool. Life Weaver Pool cannot be countered unless you bait it out. Thank you.
I mean, so there's a couple strands there that I want to investigate. The real quick though is that Kark, you or anyone else, you're not on the 6v6 train, are you? Because Samito will rejoice.
No, I actually do like 5v5. Don't get me wrong. Okay. I'm a support player, so this is beneficial for me.
I like 5v5 as well.
I do like 5v5.
I just want to point out.
Emmy and SK.
Yeah, I like 5v5.
Okay, SK.
I feel like every support player does probably.
Yeah.
Hello guys, SEB here, and the Group Up podcast is back, and I'd like to take just 30 seconds of your time to talk to you about 2 quick things. Firstly, Patreon. If you enjoy the content, then please do consider supporting directly, because Patreon takes only about 10% of the money you give, where YouTube and Twitch take 40 and 50% respectively. So if you'd like to support the podcast, then that is the best way to do so. Secondly, if you're someone who enjoys video essays or detailed analysis of movies, TV, or anime, then please do check out my second channel, The Soak, where I'll be making videos about those kind of topics much more frequently, and where a lot of my attention will go beyond just Overwatch. It would mean the absolute world to me if you guys would check it out, but that's it for now. Let's head back to the discussion.
I'm torn on it. I've thought for so long about it, and I can't decide which one. There's so many arguments for both.
Yeah.
Okay, because obviously I don't want to turn it into a 6v6 session. We already had that debate. Nor do I think it's particularly productive. I don't see a realistic world in which we're going back to 6v6. I just don't think that's gonna happen.
Yeah.
So, but what can be illuminating is like learning the lessons of what's happened and adapting it to this game. Samido, while we mentioned him, did make a video recently on kind of how he felt supports have kind of ruined Overwatch, which is a appropriate discussion to have, I think, on the support debate as another counterpoint. One of the things he really spoke about, it's a very good video, even if you are a support player, I think it's worth a watch. You can check it out on his channel.
Escort the payload.
One of the things he talks about is this sort of gradual progression, which Boger's alluding to here, of the initial launch Overwatch supports. You know, Zenyatta, Mercy, Lucio, back when Symmetra, but let's forget about Symmetra being a support starter. A lot of these guys, they kind of, well, firstly, they're single target healers, and the utility is not, again, kind of what Boger spoke about, it's kind of, the utility is finite, it's counterplayable, it's, you can understand how it works. Over time, Brig is added, Moira is added, the way the healing is outputted becomes easier. So it's AoE healing, it's you just push the button and it executes the entire healing, right? As opposed to Ana, where you have to hit the shot to heal. Because she has the higher healing output compared to the previous supports, but that comes at the cost of having to hit it. Same for her abilities. We eventually start transitioning to, well, you know, Brig, just everyone heals around her. Moira, everyone heals around her. Bap, everyone heals around him. Kiriko, the Suzu, you just push the thing and it does the thing, right? So it is not necessarily an execute mechanic. Do you feel like that has been a problem? Do you feel like that is why why people feel so frustrated with the support role? And I think another complaint often here, you know, even SK kind of alluded to, well, I can turn my brain off with some of these supports. And that's what a lot of people feel, I think. They feel like, well, the reason they're so angry is that they feel like supports are too free. So do you think this transition is part of it? Like this emphasis from the development side of supports that are executing things too easily? I want to take it to SK if you are feeling up to the voice of it, SK. Do you have any thoughts on this?
Supports being easy to play.
Or the newer supports getting, you know, more free value, as it were.
I think for me, a lot of the reason that I find support like brainless and easier to play is just because the hitboxes are so big. Like Illari is a great example. If I'm playing Ashe and I'm just whiffing everything all day, like I literally can't hit anything. I go to play Iari and I'm hitting every shot just because the hitbox is like a lot bigger on her bullets and things like that. But I do think there's also like a lot of thought lost. Like when I play Kyria, I don't even really need to ult track anymore. Like sure I can. Like, oh, they have Illari ult, I'll save my cleanse or whatever. But most of the time, like, if I don't even realize that, I'll still have it for when they ult. So I guess that's like the only example I could really think of right now.
So do you agree or disagree with the premise? Like, do you think the way they've designed the new supports is fine, or do you think there is a wider problem with the way these new supports, Illari and Kiriko and Lifeweaver, are kind of the way their kits and their save abilities operate?
Oh yeah, no, I don't like it. I just like having to bait something out before you could press your button feels bad. And it's different when it's like other abilities, but if I'm playing against a Curie and I have JQ ult and she knows I have JQ ult, she will not press cleanse until I ult. So it could be like an entire fight or 2 fights until eventually I'm just like, alright, screw it, I'll try and hit like 4 people so she can't cleanse everyone. And then she just cleanses everyone. It's like, oh, what the heck. And then playing against Lifeweaver pull is so frustrating. I hate that guy. And like, he can just counter so many ults with his abilities, like Lifeweaver pedal stops grab, it stops sig ult. There's a whole bunch more. Yeah.
Interesting. CarQ, do you have any sort of thoughts on this? Do you feel like, because you said, well, outplaying has been a thing since Overwatch 1.
Yeah,
Do you-
I think so.
So you disagree with this premise?
My dice are cursed.
That it's unfun to play. I mean, at the same time, like some supports also had to like sit and wait. So JQ has to wait for Kiriko to thing. Lucio used to have to wait for Sombra to EMP, and then I have to come out of hiding before I could drop the beat.
True.
You know, there's every role, like it's I don't know. For me, I just feel like nothing's new. Like it's like obviously it's a new game, but like this isn't an old concept. So like, you know, maybe one's a bit more disproportionately tougher for one, but like, you know, hiding a Zen to before you pop your trank for the EMP, or you know, I have to save. Like as a queen, you don't ult until Kiriko cleanses, and then for me, I'm like, their tracer's lurking around. She's looking for a pulse bomb. I can't do it until she pulse bombs too. You know what I mean? There's more things than one thing to. I still have to hold my stuff relative to the compositions. You know what I mean? Okay, Boger, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
I want to interject is that
Sure.
you're right, You're completely right. It always existed, but EMP is an ult, and you counter an ult with it. Suzu is an ability. That is the annoying. I don't mind, having that game like back in the day where you wait out the EMP and then you beat or play around that. But it's an ult for ult. It's not a ability for an ultimate. It is so infuriating to have to wait to use your ult for 4 fights, like SK said, just for the Kiriko to use an ability, and that's it. The end. Sorry.
I think some tanks also have the ability to stop things as well with not an ultimate as well. For example, Zarya bubbles, they counter the Diva bomb, or they stop. They can stop like big impactful things as well.
Yeah,
what
but
I
you
mean?
have one tank, right? But you can have a Kiriko, Suzu, and a Life Weaver pool, for example, right? You can have 2 supports countering you, while the tank is only one, and the Zarya needs to choose between bubbling herself or somebody else. And there's like a lot of gameplay around. You can also break the bubble. You can also bait out the bubbles. If you bait out the bubbles, Zarya is dead. She doesn't have bubbles, right? There's a lot of thinking behind it. Suzu, she doesn't have to use Suzu, right? Life Weaver, his entire purpose for the pool is to save it for that one moment, right? There's no other moment. He doesn't have to use it ever.
True. Those are the strengths of those heroes, but then what's the downside? So you have to have like the design philosophy of like a balance between them. Which is why I think it's annoying to play against Life Weaver, but he's balanced because he does everything else kind of shitty, or like the damage portion. But you can pump your damage arbitrarily on, like, if they have a Roadhog, you can farm higher damage on the stat sheet. But like against high movement comps, then you're strong on one end, which is to like deny certain ultimates, but then you're weak on the other. And I don't think that's like a terrible design philosophy in my personal opinion. Like we're in a game, it's an ever-evolving live service game. Like how many different healing archetypes can you really have in like designs? It's like single target or AoE, and it's just like, when you have like hundreds of heroes, you're gonna have some overlap on things that do very similar things. So like, I don't know, I like the design of new heroes, to be honest with you. I think every single hero they've released so far has been a banger, including Sojourn, Junker Queen, the ones that came out with the game Kiriko. Those 3 were great. Ramatra's been great. So I don't know where I'm going with this. Sorry. Okay.
No, it's a fair point, and I think again I will have to try and do my best to present the arguments of the support defenders, which is that what you're saying is correct, Barbarian. That there's the one tank, whereas there's the 2 supports who can stack these things on top of each other. But the supports would say, well, we have to do that as well, because on our own, each support is potentially weak, right? Each support on its own potentially can just get completely rolled by the one tank. So we need to gang up on the one tank, otherwise they just win. So like the 2 is only evening it out.
That's our role. Like we're a support. And now obviously some supports do a little too much on other categories, but like that is the purpose of it. But it's like also then the same thing with tanks. It's just like you could sit there as Orisa and just like rotate all your cooldowns, you never die. You could sit there and just block as Ramatra forever and actually just like stall forever. I mean, the fun factor is a different thing, but like it can also be equally annoying from a support's perspective, where it's like I can't do anything to the enemy team, but then I default to healing my team or whatever, which can be fun on its own. And that's actually another psychology thing, where it's like sometimes, how you guys said like support's very chill, it's a more easier role, relaxing role. I can agree with, because you can always feel like you're doing something. That's like where it's like, even if my back's against the wall, I can always like be healing my teammates because they're usually around me. But then when you're a DPS, you have to like find all these angles as tanks. You have to make sure where the hell is your team, find this cooldown, bait this cooldown. There is like parts of support that are like super chill, but I just think that's just the way the role operates. And like I don't think you'll ever be able to equally associate the fun factor for each role, because they all just do different things. And maybe like human tendency is to like enjoy the chill role more, and it's like frustrating to do the hard ones. But some tank players love the chaos, and they're like, yeah, I love taking all the hits from my team, you know what I mean? But I think tank's been always been like a less popular kind of role in all kind of games. Or maybe I'm wrong on this, I don't know, but like whenever I like you like raid in World of Warcraft or whatever, it's like, isn't it harder to find
that's
tanks
correct.
in general?
That is correct. In most video games, less people play tanks. I think there's a really important insight in there, though, which I don't know if we've consciously talked about it, is that the activity of the support is perhaps what makes it feel more like you feel more autonomy on support.
Autonomous. Yes.
Because you feel like because the difference is, as you said, with a tank or a DPS, you can't even always be doing damage, right? Like certain tanks, for example, they're nerfed by their range. So if you're like we've spoken about like Reinhardt, even Winston, like the sniper monkey, while amusing when you get the sniper monkey, is largely pointless. Like it's not actually gonna do anything in the in like the pre-fight poke. So it's like this, you know, tanks like this are often left with nothing to do but stand there, right? But just be there. So they don't have this constant thing they can be doing to make themselves feel like I'm actually contributing. And even DPS sometimes, you know, you can't really always be doing damage because of the circumstances of where you are, or perhaps again your range is the DPS. So maybe that's an insight. Emmy, I want to take it to you because you haven't spoken in a while. Like, how do you feel about what we've kind of spoken about here with the way the supports have evolved? Firstly, if you have any things to add on the first thing we discussed about the power creep, for lack of a better term, of the support heroes, the new ones, and also just this idea of like the dynamism of the support role.
I kind of agree that like certain abilities that you get free value from, that you don't have to like ult track, like Suzu, because the cooldown's so short, you're just gonna have it for almost everything. That's always gonna be unfun to play against. But I think that there's also a lot of people that think supports should not be able to like do damage. Like they should only be able to support their team and enable their team. And that's never going to work in the Overwatch setting because you have to be able to change the outcome of a game yourself. So I don't know. I just think it's I'm kind of like in the middle of CarQ and Boger and SK. I just think that there should be some sort of fall off for like Kiriko. Like Kiriko can do everything. She can output healing, she can damage, and she can MO and cleanse. And I think that there should be some sort of fall off for characters like that. And like even Lifeweaver, honestly, I don't agree with CarQ on Lifeweaver. I think Lifeweaver is really, really hard to counter because he has so much. He has the movement. He has the.
So, for those who don't know, Cyberpunk 2077's 2.0 update has included some major new developments regarding the game's biggest and most talked about mystery, that being the meaning behind the hexadecimal code FF06B5, which has plagued the minds of many.
Spend every moment growing into who you truly are.
Stay close. I can't hear you if you stray.
Stay near, will you? I hate when people run off without me.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. Initial flashpoint. Arena.
Many for almost 3 years now. Finally.
Where are you at? Where have you been? 問いかけに答えはなく Where are we headed? What did you mean? 追いかけても遅く遠く A bird, a butterfly, and
to the mace to the face.
Flashpoint unlocks in 10 seconds.
Mace to the face. Let me take care of that mace to the face.
Flashpoint unlocked.
Mace to the face. Precision speed. I can protect you.
Tranquility.
Cheers, Squire. It's time to save the realm.
Baptiste here.
Zarya, ready for duty.
Symmetry. Group up with me. Big prize.
Everyone ready? Setting my equalizer to absolute destruction. Setting my equalizer to absolute destruction.
Hi, hello.
Hey!
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Attackers incoming. Defend objective A.
That party was boring.
Voy a hacer que lo necesite.
Someone needs to fill this saddle.
I see one!
Enemy here!
Touch!
My sound barrier is almost ready.
Widowmaker here. Tracer here. Ha-ha!
I got you. Patched up. See that? Yeah.
Hello there.
You had it coming. Much better.
Para reporting.
Feel it. Next round's on me. Affirmative. Next round's on me.
Sniper here.
Dead eyes. It's time. Where there's smoke, there's fire.
I aim to devastate. 60 seconds remaining.
I see an enemy!
Brigitte at your service.
We are outnumbered.
I
I have no use for cookies.
Soldier 76 reporting for
I
duty.
have no use for
Zenyatta is
Let
here.
them
Stop
eat
the
cake.
payload.
Let them eat cake. 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 Do you let them eat cake? Heal me. My ultimate is almost ready.
Over there.
Yes. Let them eat cake. Let them eat cake. No one can hide from my sight.
This one.
You cannot escape me. Don't worry, I'll be right behind you.
Yes. Let them eat cake. Sight. No one can hide from my sight.
This one.
They have us outnumbered. The Junker Queen stands with ya.
Soldier 76 reporting for duty.
I'm Dinah Zeiter. Heightening your capabilities. That's my expert opinion. Let me tend to that. If only that's my expert opinion.
60 seconds remaining.
Doctor's orders. Need a second opinion? Checking in.
Get out of my
Need a
face.
second opinion? Questionable judgment. I'm here to help. Questionable judgment.
I'm on fire. Thanks.
Questionable judgment. Questionable judgment.
30 seconds.
Just in case.
Together they strikes him down.
10 seconds.
Would you like to see
remaining.
my
Stand your ground.
Pardon?
Okay, let's go.
Cause I'm in the stars tonight. So watch me bring the fire and set the night alight. Shoes on, get up in the morning, cup of milk, let's rock and roll. King Kong, kick the drum, rolling on like a rolling stone. Sing song when I'm walking home, jump up to the top of the dawn. Ding dong, call me on my phone, iced tea with a game of ping pong. This is getting heavy, can you feel the bass? Boom, I'm ready. Life is sweet as honey, yeah, this beat cha-ching like money. Disco overload, I'm into that, I'm good to go, I'm diamond, you know I glow. Cause I'm in the stars tonight. So watch me bring the fire and set the night alight. Shining through the city with a little fucking soul. I'ma light it up like dynamite. Bring a friend, join the crowd, whoever wanna come along. Word up, talk the talk, just move like we off the wall. Day or night, the sky's the light, so we dance till the break of dawn. Ladies and gentlemen, I've got the medicine, so you should keep your eyes on the ball. This is getting heavy, can you feel the bass? Boom, I'm ready. Life is sweet as honey, yeah, this beat cha-ching like money. Disco overload, I'm into that, I'm good to go, I'm dynamite, you know I glow. Yeah, cause I'm in the stars tonight. So watch me bring the fire and set the night alight. Shining through the city with a little fucking soul. I'ma light it up like dynamite. Da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na. Life is dynamite. Da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na. Life is dynamite. Shining through the city with a little fucking soul. I'ma light it up like dynamite. Da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na, eh. Da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na, eh. Da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na, eh. Light it up like dynamite. Da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na, eh. Da-na-na-na-na-na-na, eh. Da-na-na-na-na-na-na, eh. Light it up like dynamite. 'Cause I'm in the stars tonight. So watch me bring the fire and set the night alight. Shining through the city with a little fucking soul. I'ma light it up like dynamite. 'Cause I'm in the stars tonight. So watch me bring the fire and set the night alight. Shining through the city with a little fucking soul. I'ma light it up like dynamite. Da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na. Life is dynamite. Da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na. Life is dynamite. Shining through the city with a little fucking soul. I'ma light it up like dynamite.
Spend every moment.
'Cause I'm in the stars tonight. So watch me bring the fire and set the night alight. Shining through the city with a little fucking soul. I'ma light it up like dynamite.
It's go time.
Baptiste here. Pry them off the robot.
Nerf this.
Your team has lost the lead.
We're outnumbered.
They've moved ahead of us.
Playing by the silo.
Torbjörn, ready to learn.
Something for the state. Nice to be the patient for a change. She with them, she with.
The robot is moving the barricade.
Only in unity will we find strength.
Behold my accept.
Play of the game.
Nerf this! Enjoy that kill cam!
It's nice to feel appreciated.
Disco overload, I'm into that. I'm good to go, I'm diamond. You know I glow. 'Cause I'm in the stars tonight. So watch me bring the fire and set the night alight. Shining through the city with a little fucking soul. I'ma light it up like dynamite.
Now traveling.
Mobilizing! Don't take it personally when I get the most kills, okay? If they destroy any of my favorite magics, I'm coming for them!
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Round 1. Capture.
Nice try! Hi! 안녕!
together. All of us.
Yes. Hi.
Genji is with you.
We're going against the odds. Sojourn en route.
I stand with you.
Baptiste here. Hi there. This is going to sting. Behind you! Ah! Behind you! Ah! Just kidding.
Careful! We're outnumbered! Winston reporting.
Yeti, reporting in.
Reinhardt at your service!
Over there.
Sombra online.
Attack the notice.
We've got a world to save.
Bombs ticking.
Okay, let's go.
Cause I'm in the stars tonight. So watch me bring the fire and set the night alight. Shoes on, get up in the morning, cup of milk, let's rock and roll. King Kong, kick the drum, rolling on like a rolling stone. Sing song when I'm walking home, jump up to the top of the dawn. Ding dong, call me on my phone. Iced tea with a game of ping pong. This is getting heavy. Can you feel the bass boom? I'm ready. Life is sweet as honey. Yeah, this beat cha-ching like money. Disco overload. I'm into that. I'm good to go. I'm diamond. You know I glow. 'Cause I'm in the stars tonight. So watch me bring the fire and set the night alight. Shining through the city with a little fucking soul. I'ma light it up like dynamite. Bring a friend, join the crowd, whoever wanna come along. Word up, talk the talk, just move like we off the wall. Day or night, the sky's the light, so we dance till the break of dawn. Ladies and gentlemen, I've got the medicine, so you should keep your eyes on the ball. This is getting heavy, can you feel the bass boom? I'm ready. Life is sweet as honey, yeah, this beat cha-ching like money. Disco overload, I'm into that, I'm good to go, I'm diamond, you know I glow. Yeah, 'cause I'm in the stars tonight. So watch me bring the fire and set the night alight. Shining through the city with a little fucking soul. I'ma light it up like dynamite. Da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na. Life is dynamite. Da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na. Life is dynamite. Shining through the city with a little fucking soul. I'ma light it up like dynamite. Da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na, eh. Da-na-na-na-na-na-na, eh. Da-na-na-na-na-na-na, eh. Light it up like dynamite. Da-na-na-na-na-na-na, eh. Da-na-na-na-na-na-na, eh. Da-na-na-na-na-na-na, eh. Light it up like dynamite. 'Cause I'm in the stars tonight. So watch me bring the fire and set the night alight. Hey, shining through the city with a little fucking soul. I'ma light it up like dynamite. 'Cause I'm in the stars tonight. So watch me bring the fire and set the night alight. Shining through the city with a little fucking soul. I'ma light Watch me bring the fire and set the night alight. Shoes on, get up in the morning, cup of milk, let's rock and roll. King Kong, kick the drum, rolling on like a rolling stone. Sing song when I'm walking home, jump up to the top, LeBron. Ding dong, call me on my phone, iced tea with a game of ping pong. This is getting heavy, can you feel the bass boom? I'm ready.
perfection, we build a new world. Teleporter materialized.
Okay, let's go.
Cause I'm in the stars tonight. So watch me bring the fire and set the night alight. Shoes on, get up in the morning, cup of milk, let's rock and roll. King Kong, kick the drum, rolling on like a rolling stone. Sing song when I'm walking home, jump up to the top, LeBron. Ding dong, call me on my phone, iced tea with a game of ping pong. This is getting heavy, can you feel the bass boom? I'm ready. Life is sweet as honey, yeah, this beat cha-ching like money. Disco overload, I'm into that, I'm good to go, I'm diamond, you know I glow. Cause I'm in the stars tonight. So watch me bring the fire and set the night alight. Shining through the city with a little fucking soul. I'ma light it up like dynamite. Bring a friend, join the crowd, whoever wanna come along. Word up, talk the talk, just move like we off the wall. Day or night, the sky's alight, so we dance till the break of dawn. Ladies and gentlemen, I've got the medicine, so you should keep your eyes on the ball. This is getting heavy, can you feel the bass boom? I'm ready. Life is sweet as honey, yeah, this beat cha-ching like money. Disco overload, I'm into that, I'm good to go, I'm diamond, you know I glow. Yeah, cause I'm in the stars tonight. So watch me bring the fire and set the night alight. Shining through the city with a little fucking soul. I'ma light it up like dynamite. Da-da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na. Life is dynamite. Da-da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na. Life is dynamite. Shining through the city with a little fucking soul. I'ma light it up like dynamite. Da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na, eh. Da-na-na-na-na-na-na, eh. Da-na-na-na-na-na-na, eh. Light it up like dynamite. Da-na-na-na-na-na-na, eh. Da-na-na-na-na-na-na, eh. Da-na-na-na-na-na-na, eh. Light it up like dynamite. 'Cause I'm in the stars tonight. So watch me bring the fire and set the night alight. Hey, shining through the city with a little fucking soul. I'ma light it up like dynamite. 'Cause I'm in the stars tonight. So watch me bring the fire and set the night alight. Shining through the city with a little fucking soul. I'ma light it up like dynamite. Da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na. Life is dynamite. Da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na. Life is dynamite. Shining through the city with a little fucking soul. I'ma light it up like dynamite. 'Cause I'm in the stars tonight. So watch me bring the fire and set the night alight. Shining through the city with a little fucking soul. I'ma light it up like dynamite. Baby, tell me what to do. Foot on the pedal, I'm waiting on standby. Want my heart and want my love with a single kiss, 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 kiss. I want a love that takes my heart soaring. Beautiful, excuse me. I only see like a light possibility.
We're outnumbered. Hey.
Can you still see your dreams shining brightly, or have they gone dull against the stars? Tell me, are they brighter or duller now that I'm holding your hand? I have seen hearts like yours glow with the passion we call love. When emotions overflow, I know you'll rise above. I once believed without a doubt that all my dreams were close in my reach. No matter how far they seemed out, the me that was once so full of hope faded.
I had a brief period where I was doing like commercial auditions and that sort of thing, and like it sucks. And I remember when I first moved to LA, I read one of Nick Offerman's books. I have a soft spot for Nick Offerman, and he talked about how he did like a few commercial auditions when he first moved to LA, and then was like, actually, I'm just gonna do woodwork in the meantime because I would rather like build things with wood to pay my rent than deal with the dehumanizing process of commercial auditions. The best part about commercial auditions though is when I would go to them, I would just like sit in a room because they cast based on types, and I would go to a room and it'd just be these like a bunch of dudes in their mid-30s who were white and kind of tall and bald and had beards and just like looked like it's nuts. If you ever want to just be like, oh, I'm just a part of a genetic algorithm, here you go. I had a brief period where I was doing like commercial auditions and that sort of thing, and like it sucks. And I remember when I first moved to LA, I read one of Nick Offerman's books.
This is the introvert curse. You're hanging out with someone, what? And then some part of your brain is like, this guy's having fun at a social event. Doesn't he know he's an introvert? And then we unplug the social battery, and then you feel drained. So if we look at people nowadays, everybody is an introvert. Why? Because social interactions are exhausting. So let me ask y'all a question. What does an extrovert with social anxiety look like? Can extroverts get social anxiety? How does that work? So it turns out that everyone thinks that they're an introvert, and chances are that half of y'all at least are wrong. Okay? So there's a lot of common misconceptions about personality and introversion and extroversion. People sort of think that, oh, if I get drained by social interactions, that means I'm an introvert. Well, it turns out that things are a little bit more complicated than that. Let's take a look at some science. Happy now, tired later. Extroverted and conscientious behavior are related to immediate mood gains, but to later fatigue. Extroverted behavior correlates with being socially
Overwatch is a little different. I think
later.
it should be the same as my name if it's based on like the gamer tag type deal. Or actually,
That's interesting. So this is
oh no,
what
it's
a
not
lot
even
of
long
people
enough. It's
don't
Shadow
understand. If you
Skies.
get tired from social interactions, that does not mean that you are an introvert. What we're going to learn today is, first of all, how introversion and extroversion, there's a lot more complicated stuff about social anxiety. And once we understand why we actually get drained from social interactions, and extroverts, by the way, get drained from some social interactions more than introverts do. Then we'll understand what is the nature of introversion, extroversion, how does my social battery get drained, and we'll also give you one key thing, whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, to not get drained when you interact socially. So we'll teach you how to have more energy when you approach social interactions. Okay? Hey guys, I want to take a moment to talk about HD groups. Our group coaching experience here at Healthy Gamer is designed to help people with the problems of the digital age. Problems like social isolation, a lack of purpose, or simply feeling overwhelmed. Groups are a place that will help you learn the skills that are necessary for success that aren't really taught anywhere. Skills like how to be an effective listener and communicate effectively. Skills like how to be vulnerable so that you can allow yourself to authentically connect with another human being. Skills like cultivating self-awareness so you understand where your motivation comes from, but also where self-sabotaging behavior comes from. And so if y'all are interested in learning more about groups and interested in learning a little bit about how you can develop competence and confidence to move forward in life, check out the link in the description below. So misconception number one, everyone thinks, oh my god, extroverts get energy from social interactions, and if I feel drained, that means I'm an introvert. Incorrect. So what we tend to find is that
finding mine
even
at all, or
extroverts
am I giving the wrong
fatigue
information?
from social interaction. The other really interesting thing is that if you look at negative workspaces, so people where workspaces where people gossip. So a lot of y'all think, oh, I'm an introvert and I hate this fucking political, everyone's gossiping all the time and it's so exhausting. It turns out that if you are an introvert, you are actually resistant to workplace gossip. And actually, additionally, extroversion strengthens the main effect of negative workplace gossip on emotional exhaustion. Right? So this is bizarre. This means that actually extroverts are more sensitive to social things, and that negative workplace gossip actually gets negatively impacted by extroversion. So some of y'all out there may actually be extroverts, but you just get tired from social interactions, and that's because there is a simplistic view. I know this sounds crazy, but as we get more and more 60-second TikToks that have no nuance in them, we start to get these like black and white perceptions of what introversion and extroversion are. This means I am an introvert. This means I'm an extrovert. No, it doesn't. Half of y'all are introverts and half of y'all are extroverts. And on top of that, 87.5% of y'all are basically somewhat in the middle, and it shouldn't gigantically impact you. There are other things going on. Let's understand this. So if I'm saying, hold on a second, if I get exhausted from social interactions, does that mean I'm not an introvert? Yes. There is even some evidence that being an extrovert
this often,
causes
so don't know the
certain
whole
kinds
BattleNet
of social
stuff.
interactions
The battle
to affect
tag.
you more. So the key thing about extroversion is you are more connected
Well,
to
that's
your
just basically the
social
equivalent of
environment.
like the gamer tag
So
you use
if
on
you're fucking in a
BattleNet.
toxic workplace and you feel exhausted in going into work every day, it doesn't mean you're an introvert. It just, actually means you could be an extrovert who's just more sensitive to the workplace dynamics. Introversion means that you're less connected to workplace stuff or social interactions, okay? That's number one. Second thing is, if we look at that fatigue paper, that even if you get a mood lift, you will be fatigued 3 hours later.
Oh, numbers.
And that finding is actually somewhat independent of whether you are an introvert or extrovert. So that sounds kind of weird, because weren't we talking about extroversion in some way? So if you look at extroverted behavior leads to a mood lift followed by fatigue 3 hours later. And whether your personality is more of an introvert or extrovert, it actually doesn't matter. So this is the key thing. A lot of that exhaustion does not have to do with personality. And this is really important to understand, because personality is relatively fixed. It can change some over time, but it's kind of who you are.
I put mine in,
The
so
key
you
thing to understand
guys probably
that a lot of
see.
people don't understand
I
about
can add. I didn't know
exhaustion and social
about that part.
interaction, it doesn't have to do with personality. It has to do with what's in your head at that moment, your behaviors, and the way that you frame social situations. So even introverts can learn how to enjoy social interactions. So if this isn't the case, if we're sort of saying that it doesn't matter that I'm an extrovert or an introvert, social interactions are going to be exhausting for everybody, and maybe even social interactions are more exhausting for extroverts in some situations. Why does everyone feel so socially exhausted? And why does everyone think that they're an introvert? There's a second thing going on. What exhausts people in social situations is also something like social anxiety. So if we look at social anxiety, which an extrovert can have, by the way, which is terrifying, it's really tricky. What happens is that when we go into social situations, when we have social anxiety, our cognitive RAM is filled up with anxious thoughts. So you go and you hang out with a group of friends and you're like, oh my god, like what is this person thinking? Is this person upset? Should I speak to him? When should I enter the conversation? I have something cool to say, but I don't know how to enter the conversation. I'm just waiting here, waiting for my chance to speak, and oh crap, now they've shifted to something else, but I had really something cool to say. Should I go back to the topic? But that feels kind of awkward and I kind of miss my chance, and oh crap, and like now I'm not even saying
Well, I sent
anything,
you
and
one,
are
Stubbs.
wondering like if I'm just standing around.
So you may have it from there.
This is what leads to social exhaustion. This is social anxiety. Now, why is this experience more common? The one uniform thing that I think is responsible for the rise in social anxiety across our generation, starting with millennials, is getting worse the deeper down we go, the younger we get, is the use of technology. So what started to happen is we've stopped relating to other people like in person. We do things like DM each other on Discord. And when we use online-based communication, a lot of our empathic and social circuitry starts to rust. So just to give you all a simple example, when human beings used to sit around a fire and like talk to each other 2,000 years ago, there are all of these circuits in our brain that started to develop that measure tone, body language, facial expressions. And as those circuits develop, those things reassure us, right? Because you can, like, as you pay attention, you're not really paying attention, it's all subconscious. So the tone and body language of the people around you reassure you. You say, okay, these people like me, they feel comfortable. As we move on to more online communication, those parts of our brain rust. Because if I'm DMing 15 people on Discord, I don't have, like, the part of, like, I can't measure tone, I can't see body language. So those parts of our brain start to shut off in the same way that you forget a language if you don't use it.
All right.
Now we go into a real life social situation. These parts of our brain that give us social reassurance are shut off. And so we don't get any of those positive signals telling us, hey, people actually don't think you're a creep. They're smiling at you. They're looking at you, right? They're like that. They don't think you're a creep. But as those parts of our brain deactivate, the cognitive part of our brain starts picking up all of that load. And then it starts hyperactivating and doing like calculations. And calculations are fatiguing. And the more cognitively you're sitting there calculating how to not screw up this conversation, and no wonder it's exhausting. It has nothing to do with whether you're an extrovert or an introvert. Okay? This is why social anxiety is increasing. This is why people are getting think they're an introvert all the time. Doesn't mean that you're an introvert. Next thing. So how do we fix this? Okay? So there are a couple of things. One is that you can just spend more time with other human beings. And as you spend time with human beings, those parts of your brain will start to the gears will start moving and it'll stop being a little bit rusty, okay? But it's painful to do that, right? And that's why people will say this shit like, just put yourself out there.
A friend request was sent there.
That's painful. Yeah, it's painful, but it's going to take some time for your gears to adjust. So it's kind of like, if I'm sitting all day in an air-conditioned environment and then I start spending time outdoors where it's hot, it's going to feel really crappy, but eventually my body will start to change my thermoregulation because the body adapts.
Oh, it's because I have probably career profile.
Second thing, so if we look at what causes exhaustion when we socially interact with people, there's one primary variable that you can control, which is the purpose of the social interaction. So purpose-driven social interaction reduces the energy drain. So when I go to a party because my friends are like, hey, put yourself out there. And you're like, all right, I guess I have to go to a party. And then you go to a party, but you're like, okay, I'm just here to put myself out there. There's not a clear idea of like what you're doing there. There's not a clear purpose. That's going to be socially exhausting because you're just sitting there, you're holding a drink, maybe you're on your phone too. You're kind of like, what am I even doing here? Like, this is a pain. Like, no one's talking to me. I'm not talking to anyone. You're not really like focused on, you don't have a particular goal. So this is what's really interesting is you can send introverts to social situations or extroverts. And if they have a purpose for being there, their energy will be way higher, right? So I can send an introvert to like, hey, like we're gonna go play board games at a board game cafe. And like, we're gonna have fun at a board game cafe. And then you go to a board game cafe and suddenly you've got these introverts who are chatting up the people next to them. Because I'm there with like my 3 friends, we're playing a 4-player game, but hey, let's play like Mafia or something like that, involves 8 players. And now suddenly you're like making friends. There's tons of like people at anime conventions who are like hitting each other up and making friends, and half of them are introverts or half of them are extroverts. It's not like anime is like specifically an introvert hobby. That's what we think, but I don't think so. So purpose-driven social activity. So if you feel drained by social interaction, it doesn't mean you're an extrovert, doesn't mean you're an introvert. Instead, what you really need to think about is, what am I doing this for? What's my goal in being here? And even to sort of almost like operationalize that out a little bit. And if you're going to a party, okay, like I'm going to go here and I'm going to practice talking to people. So I'm going to try to introduce myself to 5 different people at the party. And I'm going to at least make small talk with 5 different people. And after that, if I'm not having a good time after 45 minutes, I'm just going to leave. So lay it out for yourself. And then how do you actually introduce yourself to people at a party? You literally walk up to them and you can say, hi, hello. Don't say both of those things. That's weird. Walk up and say hi. Smile. Walk up. Hold out your hand like this, you know, and say, hi, my name is Alok. It's nice to meet you. And then you can kind of ask them, like, you know, how did y'all end up here? You can ask them why they're, you know, how'd you end up here? Are you a friend of so-and-so? Someone invited you to the party, right? And you can say like, hey, I'm a friend of so-and-so's, however you got to the party, or I'm a student at this university. And I'm here to get to know some people and expand my social circle. That's it, right? You don't need an excuse. Like, oh my God, like, I have no friends and I haven't left the house in 8 You don't need to say that. Just say, hey, I'm here to expand my social circle. I'm here to meet new people. Right? And that's all the reason you need. And they're like, this motherfucker, they're all socially anxious. So they're like, this motherfucker, I wish I could do that. They're like, now I have to explain why I'm here. Right? You get that? Like, all the socially anxious people wish they could walk up to someone and confidently introduce themselves. And confidently introducing yourself is not about having confidence. It's about being succinct. You just walk up, you say very little, and then the ball is in their court. That's it. Right? And you don't want to do some people are like, how you doing? Don't do any of that crap. Right? Or you can be, hi, hello, how are you doing today? Right? And if you stutter over your words, that's okay. You can stutter. Today we're going to talk about rejection sensitivity. You know, hi. I can't. If you look at the world, there are kind of 2 types of people. There's one group of people that are sort of living relationships on hard mode, where they're kind of constantly in their heads about, okay, if I say this...
Is now active.
The story. That's really their fault for pissing you off in the first place. Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the baddest bitch of all? It's me. No need to think, no need to think. Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the baddest bitch of all? It's me. No need to think, I know it's me. I
I dare you.
Ultimate's charging.
Is it going to piss someone off? What will they think about me? They're sort of always walking on eggshells. Relationships feel really, really hard, whether they're at work, whether they're romantic relationships, or even friendships or family relationships. And if you're one of those people, you look at other people and you're like, how is this even possible? There are some people out there who are like, yeah, you know, if people get pissed off at what I do, that's their problem. You know, I can't be shaping my behavior to try to make other people happy. I gotta live for myself. And for some of us, that seems like incredibly foreign. In our mind, our experience is completely different. We're constantly thinking about, okay, what is this person gonna think? What is this person gonna do? How can I avoid having this person like get mad at me? And we're sort of hypersensitive to that stuff. And the really frustrating thing is that when we look at these people who are sort of like oblivious to relationship stuff, they seem to be like living kind of like happy-go-lucky, oblivious sort of lives. And they also seem to have like friendships and things like that. They can also do really well at work, right? Because they're kind of like extroverted and outgoing. And if they screw up, they're like, lol, haha, I screwed up, and everyone laughs at them. And meanwhile, you were at work and you're like, oh my god, I screwed up. What are people gonna think? Am I gonna get fired? Is everyone gonna hate me? And it just feels like there's these two completely different ways of living life. The hard thing is that as we sort of look towards those people who are kind of oblivious about this stuff, they don't seem to be thinking about it, it doesn't really bother them, we actually kind of want to be like them, right? We want to be happy-go-lucky, we want to be a little bit out of our own heads, we want to be able to set our boundaries. The challenge, though, is that we can't really do what they do, right? And we may even talk to them and ask for advice, or we may sort of like hear about advice from the internet where people are like, just do this, like set your boundaries, right? Like, let your boss know that this is not okay. Let your parents know that this is not okay. This is unacceptable. And so we can kind of say stuff like that, but the people who are giving that kind of advice aren't really like sensitive to rejection. So the playbook that they're using is different from the playbook that we're using. The life that they're living and even the brains that they have are actually very different from ours. Because rejection sensitivity is a very real thing. And today we're going to talk a little bit about how we develop rejection sensitivity, a little bit about how it manifests, and some more about what to do about it. So let's talk about how rejection sensitivity develops. So generally speaking, rejection sensitivity is actually an adaptive survival mechanism to a non-ideal environment growing up. So we're going to give you all kind of an extreme example of this, okay? So let's say that I'm in a household where I don't feel safe or secure. The most classic example is like a parent who is abusive or neglectful. So what people sort of learn, what children learn as a survival mechanism is, how can I read any kind of subtle sign from my parenting figure or caregiver about what their mood is, and how can I avoid pissing them off, right? So if caregivers sort of blame you for their bad mood and they punish you for like annoying them, then you will become sensitive to rejection. So what this experience kind of feels like for people is like you're kind of walking on eggshells, you're hyper vigilant to the mood of people within the household. And sometimes when I talk to people who have really been in traumatic situations, I'll ask them, how long does it take you to know whether you're like in for a bad night? And they'll say they can tell within seconds. The second my mom or dad walks in the door, I can tell based on like, it's so rapid and it's unconscious. I know already that I need to go into survival mode. And what these people will end up doing is they'll engage in some kinds of behaviors that are actually survival or adaptations, such as becoming invisible, right? Or being very, very careful about what you say or what you do because you don't want to trigger some kind of negative sort of situation. And if you kind of think about the child in this situation does not feel safe or secure. And since it's not safe or secure, we can't do anything even remotely risky. And what we have to learn how to do is play it safe. And if you grow up in a household like this, you will grow up as someone who is rejection sensitive. And this, by the way, is not something that like people kind of made up. This is something that's been very scientifically validated. There are actually questionnaires that you can take that will actually measure the level of rejection sensitivity you have. And people have also done brain scans on people who are sensitive to rejection and found that their brains are different. For example, one study looked at activity in the dorsal anterior cingulate cortex, which you don't have to get into too much of the specifics. But the key thing about these brain scan studies is that they find that some people are sensitive to specifically disapproval, and that some parts of their brain will light up and will become hyperactive when there's any kind of disapproval on their radar. They don't respond this way to even things like anger or fear or other negative emotions. But when they see a facial expression of disapproval, their brain kind of lights up like a Christmas tree. So this is absolutely something that is an adaptation and shapes the way that our brain is formed. So what are the key features of rejection sensitivity? There are three of them. The first is anxious expectation. So people who are sensitive to rejection are always worried and almost expecting to be rejected. So what this results in is, in social situations, a sense of hypervigilance, where you're constantly thinking or even waiting to be rejected. So you can't just be yourself and relax. You have to constantly think about, okay, if I say this, how is this person going to respond? If I show up at work and I'm wearing this clothing, will this person start to think, oh my God, I'm trying to copy them? So you're constantly thinking about and expecting some sort of rejection. The second feature of rejection sensitivity is ready perception. Now, what does this mean? This means that there are actually neutral stimuli in the environment that you will perceive as negative. And there have been studies done on this as well, where someone may say, like, let's say you text someone, and then they don't respond right away. So this is somewhat like of a neutral stimulus. It doesn't mean that they dislike you, doesn't mean that they hate you, but if you are someone who's prone to rejection, what that means is that your brain will interpret a neutral stimulus in a negative way. And this explains why people who are sensitive to rejection have such difficult experiences of life. Because there's actually a lot of neutral or benign stimuli out there, but our brains are going to interpret them as like negative towards us. And this sort of leads to the third aspect of rejection sensitivity, which is overreaction. So this is where either emotionally or behaviorally, we're first of all anxiously expecting, and then we're over-interpreting neutral stimuli, which then results in an overreaction, right? So if I text someone and they don't text me back, suddenly I feel terrible. My amygdala and my hippocampus will sort of like hyperactivate. My limbic system hyperactivates. I feel a ton of negative emotion, and then I suddenly start copiously apologizing for texting them and disturbing them. Right? So what your life sort of feels like if you're sensitive to rejection, what it actually looks like is that there are all kinds of like neutral or maybe negative stimuli, you perceive them as negative, and then you're constantly apologizing, constantly walking on eggshells, constantly trying to fix relationships that you seem to always screw up. And so this is all mediated by stuff going on in the brain. Now, the tricky thing about rejection sensitivity is, as we mentioned earlier, it's actually a survival mechanism. And the real problem that people who are sensitive to rejection run into is that this is kind of like learning a survival strategy that then stops helping you survive and actually causes you problems later on in life. And so there's one key thing to understand here, which is that when you learn these kinds of avoidant behaviors, right? Because by the way, you're tired of pissing people off and you keep on screwing up. So the best thing to do is to retract from the relationship. So if you kind of think about how we learn these strategies are usually learned in the home. So there's one key thing that's very different about growing up with rejection sensitivity and living as an adult with rejection sensitivity. And that is, when you're growing up, the relationship is actually constant or guaranteed. Right? So I want you all to think about a 6-year-old or a 7-year-old who's learning these adaptive strategies. As they learn to withdraw and avoid people because we're tired of pissing people off and we keep on screwing up, that parent is still going to be there tomorrow. They're going to still be there the next day, and the next day, and the next month, and the next year. So we learn this sort of adaptive strategy of avoidance in a situation where the relationship can never be ruptured, right? If I start avoiding people, like, my parents are still going to be there every day. So the relationship is in a kind of constant state that will never result in like them withdrawing from you because it's a parental relationship. The real struggle that people with rejection sensitivity have is as they move out into the world, those relationships are not constant. Those relationships are not guaranteed. And so what happens is a lot of the strategies that we use, which is learning how to be invisible, walking on eggshells, and avoiding situations, will actually negatively impact our relationships, right? Because if I start to be really avoidant with a friend of mine or someone that I'm even starting to date, or a boss, and I'm like dodging text messages because I'm afraid of pissing them off, what I will end up doing is piss them off. I'll come across as aloof, I'll come across as uninvested, I'll come across as busy, and then people will start to retreat from us. And this creates a really challenging conundrum for someone who's sensitive to rejection. Because, oh my God, now this person is retreating. What did I do wrong? And that's when you kind of get paralyzed, right? Because you want to do more, you want to pull them back in, but you grew up in a situation that did not teach you how to pull people back in, did not teach you how to engage with people, because actually the survival strategy when you were growing up is go invisible and become avoidant. So now the natural question kind of becomes, okay, so what do we do about this, right? And this is where we're going to tunnel down into the 3 features of rejection sensitivity a little bit more. So the first is anxious expectation. So this is where if you observe yourself when you interact with people, what you'll kind of discover is that your mind is on high alert. And one of the key things that you can do to kind of overcome this is try to have as many neutral interactions as you can. So why does your mind always exist on high alert? It always exists on high alert because it learned to be in high alert, right? Like you learned that, okay, we need to be constantly in high alert because we are constantly in danger. So one of the most important things that you can do is to have as many neutral interactions as possible and don't overreact to them. So if you go and hang out with people, try to have it just be neutral, right? So like, you don't have to knock it out of the park. You don't need to like piss people off, but just try to hang out with people. And over time, as long as you're kind of neutral, that sort of anxious expectation will start to decrease. We basically want to give our brain more data about how people will react to us because we don't want to use the conclusions from childhood. The second thing that we need to be a little bit careful about is how we react to neutral stimuli. And this is where people who are sensitive to rejection really negotiate against themselves when it comes to social situations. So you will take any kind of neutral situation or any kind of situation and you will, first of all, assume the worst, and secondly, blame yourself the most, right? So if someone says, hey, I'm sorry I can't hang out today, or they cancel the last minute, you're not going to interpret that as, oh, this person is flaky, or they're sick, or this is a problem on their end. You are automatically going to interpret that as a problem on your end. So you need to really be aware of the way that you actually like give yourself very little credit, and you give them a bunch of credit. And you're sort of really willing to negotiate yourself and always take on the mantle of being the bad guy. Because remember, in the household that you grew up in, whose fault was it if mommy or daddy were mad?
It's fine. I got everything. Everything is good.
You need to be quieter.
Everything is in place.
And they kind of blame you for all
No.
this stuff. And you get into
Look
a
at this.
pattern of blaming yourself.
Look at that.
Become aware of it.
Looking perfect.
Is that people
It's like I got slide it in.
to overreact.
It's a little bit like a jigsaw puzzle, but everything's fine.
And so that's where I know this sounds really, really, really hard, but when you are in a situation where you feel rejected, just stall. Just procrastinate. Just don't do anything. Don't do anything to make them happy, because remember that your mind may be over-interpreting or incorrectly interpreting how they feel about the situation. So don't react. So you'll have these very powerful drivers within you that say, oh my God, I screwed up. What do I need to do? What do I need to do to fix it? Let me send them flowers. Let me do this. Let me apologize over and over and over again, because until I apologize, I can't tolerate this feeling of negativity. But as you start to overly apologize and take responsibility for stuff that is not your responsibility, what happens to the relationship? Sometimes they're like, oh my God, this person is like so clingy, like I don't even know, like I can't manage this person's negative emotions, like I don't know what to do, so they can start to withdraw. Or sometimes what's even worse.
Holy shit, he answered. What a motherfucking king.
I feel this way because you screwed up. And the worst thing that someone
The
who's
fuck is
sensitive to
that?
rejection can do is find
It will
someone
be a
who
burrito.
can
It
go.
looks like a
Find
bullshit
someone who will actually be,
burrito.
like,
Looks
willing
like a
to
bullshit
dance
burrito.
and dance with that, because then what ends up happening is you find yourself in an abusive
You think you can girlify me? I've already
now
girled
in a
myself,
relationship
dude.
with someone, and that could be friendship, could be
I
boss, could be
don't.
whatever.
I'm not actually
You're
sure
willing
what
to
that
take the
means.
blame all the time.
Exactly.
Hey, by the way, they're narcissistic, so they're totally happy
And there he
blaming
goes.
you all the
Or
time.
she.
So the
Is it
key
a she
thing
now?
there is to try to just not react. Try to
Hello.
stall as much as possible and try
No,
to
that
feel
wasn't very good.
alert.
I saw a transgender girl. I
I
saw a transgender girl at the gas station last night.
What?
I told her she had nice hair.
Did she get mad at
So
you?
it kind of looked like mine.
Did
No,
she?
she was.
Did she?
She said, "Oh, you
did
do
she
too,
threaten
honey."
to soon? Oh, cute.
That have even tunneled down into, okay, what
No, not you.
of meditation
I didn't
is
like
responsible for
tell her
improving
that I wanted to fuck her in the ass,
And it turns out
and
that
I needed her phone
self-compassion
number
is
or whatever the hell you do.
That's pretty accurate, actually.
and especially if we do self-compassion
Yeah, I know.
meditations, which y'all
And
can
that's
find on
why I
my
think
YouTube
we should
channel,
talk about
or you can sort of
therapy.
check out Dr. K's guide. As you start to
What?
do these meditations, you start to develop
Yeah.
compassion towards yourself. And as you develop compassion towards yourself, you start to not always be at fault. If you're not always at fault, or someone that people are just waiting to reject, then you can start to.
Why did you call me if you can't
interact with
talk?
people in kind of a healthier way,
I
right?
can
Because if
talk.
they don't text
I'm
you back,
talking right now.
"Oh, that has nothing to do with me because I'm
Oh,
actually
wow.
Why
Why are you being a
so
little
it's not
bitch?
necessarily my fault. So this is one way in which meditation
I'm not.
can really help
Ooh.
us address these kinds of
Uno
things.
reverse.
Another
Wow.
mechanism through which meditation can
Get
help
Uno
rejection
reversed on.
sensitivity is that it helps us be
Okay,
observers
second question.
of
Why
our
the fuck
own
are you not playing
internal
Overwatch?
environment. Right? So the
Why am I
problem
not playing
with rejection
Overwatch? Because I'm
sensitivity
cooking
is that
breakfast.
Our mind produces conclusions.
Why are you not
that we
cooking
automatically
breakfast?
believe to be true. Oh yeah, this person is not texting me back because
You don't
I'm
need
not worth
breakfast.
texting back. And so what we actually
What?
want to do, what meditation
You
can help us
fucking
do is
heard me.
create distance
I didn't.
between
It said
our
something. Did you say filthy breakfast? What did you say?
Yes.
non-reactivity.
You don't need
One of the
filthy
key things
breakfast.
that we really want to fix when it comes to rejection.
Tell that to the hub.
This
Now,
is
if you're
filthy
listening to this and you're
breakfast.
kind of saying,
What
okay,
is
so
that?
like, what are
Your
you
mama
saying?
house. Got him again,
Well, that's
dude.
if you want to DIY it, right? If you're listening to
Flower.
this up until this point, you're
What
saying,
the fuck is
sounds
that?
really hard. It sounds really hard for me
I
to
just
kind of
fucking
A bag
told
of
you.
food?
Sounds like I've
Yeah.
tried meditation.
I know.
Well, we're happy to lay out with
I
you
needed
how
to
you
listen
can
out.
DIY it. But this is
Listen
where,
up.
frankly, like
What?
DIYing it is
Where's
hard.
Shadell?
So the real question that you've got to ask is like,
What?
okay, if you
What?
can handle this,
What?
absolutely do it. Here's the road.
What?
Give you a little bit of a
Look at
break.
this.
The other challenge here is that
Wow,
sometimes therapy can be
two,
rejection sensitivity. So, for example,
two
rejection
Baskin,
food.
two
It's ready.
Baskin burritos.
borderline
I'm gonna do
personality
a
disorder,
mouth near
with
you.
This man
anxiety disorder,
Baskin.
with body dysmorphia. So it's correlated with all these mental illnesses that you can get diagnosed and treated.
So how you been this morning?
This man
Got anything,
Baskin.
got anything interesting going on?
You feel like this is too much to do on your own, you can
I watched your stream. You were just walking in and out of spawn. It
I'm
was
still
really
walking
strange.
out of
The
spawn.
real challenge about working with
Am I still
I was
streaming? Oh, yeah.
confused. I was like, is he trying to throw and quick play? I don't understand.
What do you think?
trained in rejection sensitivity.
I don't know. Is there like a hidden MMR? Are you trying to lose it?
This is where
Yeah.
things get really tricky because it's possible to have rejection
Oh.
sensitivity
So there's a method to your
without
madness.
Indeed.
And remember that
There's
rejection
always a method
sensitivity
to my
can kind of
madness.
correlate with each of those things. So the cool thing is that through research we've really
Oh, look,
understood
he's
I never
gone.
thought,
I guess
I never thought you would be one of those quick play throwers I read about on Reddit.
Quick play
conditioning that can be dangerous. And you can
Nobody
actually
likes
target
quick
that
play
specific
throwers. That's
and
just
this
the
is where,
real
like,
and true
we
of it
sort
all.
of understand this stuff, which is why
Well,
we
I
kind
like
of,
you.
built our coaching programs. So, as an example, like group
Really?
coaching was sort of
Sa-
designed to help
Sasuke.
people with the stuff that aren't great at necessarily.
Sauce.
So we're not really substitute therapy.
So who are all these donating to fighting my server? I still haven't caught up on the messages.
Hey Siri, can you tell me who Orochimaru is?
So group coaching is a good example of what we do in group coaching. So by the way, you don't have to sign up for
That's a
group.
complicated.
Find and
That's a complicated question.
what you try to accomplish in group coaching.
Wait,
Absolutely
what did
try
the
to
bitch say?
craft for yourself, okay? So in group coaching, you're with a group
Google.
of people. So you're
Tell me who
anxiously
Kiriko
expecting
is.
that you're gonna piss
No
them
wait,
off.
yeah.
And when you feel that way,
Google!
you can share those feelings. And
Did
say,
you just
"I
call my
feel
girlfriend a
terrible about
bitch?
myself."
Yeah.
And then this is where people with
Okay, don't do that again.
dig into that feeling.
Google!
Sort of create
Quit
this
being a
artificial
bitch.
social space where you can kind of like examine your reactions. We're gonna
That's a
evoke
no-no.
those reactions.
You're a
but we're not gonna
no-no.
kick you out of the group. We're not gonna stop texting
Especially
you.
when
So
she treats you nicely.
So
She doesn't deserve that.
we don't we're not gonna be friends. We're not gonna date. We're not gonna go into business together. It is literally a place for you
I think he
to
is drunk.
engage in, examine your social interactions, and actually start the process of reprogramming. So this is what we
Do
try to
what?
create: is situations where like you're gonna have feelings. We're gonna invite
Oh
you to
no.
share your feelings. We'll even
No, that's
inquire.
a mixer
We'll
only.
notice
It's
you're
very
quiet,
limited
and
in
we'll sort
supply.
of say like, "Hey, what makes it hard for you to engage
I mean, you
with
could
us? Do you feel
take a very
comfortable
small
asking
taste,
answering
but
questions?"
that's
And
it.
people will kind of like bring you
Or I
in
can make
there,
you a
they'll
drink,
bear that
or us a drink.
responsibility. And what we tend to
I
see
know
when
more.
we sort of create this kind of situation, and once again, it doesn't have to be group coaching.
Okay, this one's
You can
yours.
create any kind of situation where you can have some of these
I didn't burn it this time.
explorations of your reactions to conversation, to kind of social cues and things like that. Then you can really start to unravel that and start to
Make it a
reprogram
picture
yourself.
first.
So as it turns out, if you're kind of looking at other people who seem to be
Look at that
able to
plastic milk
socialize like
with
really
oil.
freely, and are like kind of like, yeah, I don't really mind if I
That's
piss other
probably
people off because that's on them. And that idea is very enviable to you, but also seems foreign to you. You're like, how on earth can you do that? I'm terrified constantly of this. And there's all kinds of relationships that I end up screwing up. And maybe even you've gone to a therapist or psychiatrist and you've tried to figure out what's going on, but you don't even meet diagnostic
This is my
criteria
fucking
for
god.
something like
Do you want your
social
shit
anxiety.
like
It
this?
turns out that there's this whole
Or
other
just
thing
the
that
way
we
it is
actually have a
normal?
growing body of research on, and that is rejection sensitivity. The reason our brain is wired like this is because these were actually adaptive survival mechanisms for usually
I'll put a little bit of
home
salsa in
environments.
yours.
The real challenge
If
is
you
that
want
our
more, you
home
can.
environment is kind of
Yeah,
built
more
on this idea that your parents won't really abandon you, right? So maybe they did, but hopefully not. But if you're 6, if you're 7, if you're 8, if you're 9, your parents are always going to be
Mr.
there.
Kalen.
So the way that I kind of describe
What?
this is it's almost like, imagine you're learning how to swim
Hey.
with a life vest on. So like you have
Check
this life vest on
your
because your parents are
goddamn
never gonna
Discord.
abandon you, and so the habits that you build.
I can't right now.
the way that you
My
learn how
dad
to
just
swim
showed up.
is
I've got to
like
help him with the
not
fish
really
tank, and
ideal.
I've
Your
got to eat
dad?
stuff.
One key safeguard. And this
My
is what happens when
dad.
people
Your
rejection
dad?
sensitivity is that
Yeah, you want to talk
helps
to
them
him?
survive in
Yeah,
the
sure.
pool with the life vest.
Okay, hold on.
The problem is that when you move out into the real world and when you start to engage in work relationships, romantic relationships, even friendships, that life vest goes away because your parents may never abandon you, but other people, if you like keep avoiding them, or you overly apologize, or you're clingy, like they're going to be like, this is too much, and they're actually going to withdraw. So what happens is you build all these habits of how to swim with a life vest on. And then when you move out into the world, you take the life vest off, and suddenly the ways that you learn how to swim no longer work. And then you feel like you're drowning. And you look at everyone else out there who's actually able to swim, and you're like, I don't understand. And you try to mimic their movements, but it doesn't work, right? You can't just watch someone else swim and then suddenly like have been in the water for 18 years with a life vest and suddenly do what they're doing, you're going to start drowning. And it feels really traumatic, and it feels like it's impossible to get a handle on. So our hope today is that we've helped you understand this a little bit, to understand that there isn't something fundamentally busted with you. This is your brain's way of like trying to figure out how to survive in the house that you grew up with. And the cool thing is that those adaptations we can actually work out. And there's actually a process, everything from meditation to DIY
Do as
stuff,
I
to
say,
seeing a
and
therapist,
I
or
will
something like
shit on
coaching,
you.
that you can actually
What the fuck is going on
learn
right
some of
now?
these behaviors. You can actually learn how to reprogram yourself
You don't
to
get it.
swim.
You don't know what I go through every day.
You don't get it.
Just because
Where?
I'm always
Where? Holy fuck. Now I get why Holly hates Naruto. It all makes sense now.
Oh, is he interrupting? Hello.
That's why I'm gonna stay out here and fucking find some
reasons, but as a teacher, I can't just walk away. I won't allow you to stay in such a dangerous area. You can't even try to understand my feelings.
Try to understand my feelings, dude.
You do too.
Search inside of your shitter.
No, wait! Girls are so easy to trick, it's not even funny.
Brutal.
Don't take me to a positive kitchen to me.
What the fuck?
You're so starving, you can't even think about
No,
something that's in it.
Naruto's such a Chad, dude.
You don't have space for another person in that relationship.
Regulation, isn't it?
Yeah, you're joking.
Dr. K should address I am desperately looking for partners.
Oh, damn.
Hello and welcome to my controversial
Come on in.
I feel like I really expressed my post.
Come on in.
My updated post. I've seen so
Hey,
many
you
of
anything
my
today?
fellow men expressing how they
Hungry?
feel about being alone. I fully admit I myself
food?
have done it. And
There's a half a burrito on that plate if you want. Go for it. It's just egg and
I
bacon.
can't imagine how the female members
I
feel, but I imagine they feel
What?
objected and annoyed.
Oh, say hello.
I'm aware
Hello.
this is
Oh,
a
hey.
contentious topic.
Hey, what up,
I'm
David?
in a new job,
Not
new
much.
city,
Not
and
much.
blew
What's your
everything. I
name?
get it.
I need you.
However,
Can you access
most say
your-
posts the same stuff. Most posts say the same stuff. I'm horny and alone. No woman will ever will love me because I'm ugly. I don't talk to women and none like me. I don't go out and talk to women and I'm angry about that. I just want a girl
You want this food?
or for intimacy, which isn't really healthy.
Yeah, eat
The
it.
reasons are inherently bad.
Hey, you probably haven't eaten, right?
Your goal.
Um,
Many fellow men wallow in
you don't want it, I'll
loneliness
take the other
and
half.
romantic intimacy will get them what they want.
It's good.
And
Eat it.
it may for a time. However, if you don't
Just
love
eat it.
you, if you
Yeah,
aren't,
I know you're always hungry.
if you're not the person you want to love, then you'll likely
It is
have
good.
issues with the relationship.
A little burned on
I'm
one
no
side,
expert,
but it's
but
alright.
I'm a guy, and I can tell you that while being horny and alone sucks, being in a toxic relationship is worse than hell. Work on yourself, bros. Focus on you, but most importantly, put yourself out there and remember that rejection is rejection. To the guys who are emotionally abused, valid, and don't know how to talk to
How
women,
much per
I
square
was cheated
foot?
on, valid, and I don't feel
Yeah,
comfortable
mini
with
home.
it. These guys need help and time.
Take.
Don't jump into dating. Take time to
How much
focus
per
on
square
you, and
foot?
that's the core. You need to focus on you no matter who you are.
You
If
still
your mom is
crashing
desperate,
through.
depressed, angry, and/or women are just
Totally
reproductive
help.
organs, then
That's
you'll
why I
literally,
really don't.
you'll likely keep
I need to
incurring
know
the
what
same
the
problem.
squirt.
While I sympathize
You know,
with
that thing
you
is
guys,
like
we need to focus on us, not
75
sex
gallons
in a
and
relationship.
6.6 pounds per gallon, right?
Here's my original post.
I don't know.
I,
Yeah,
as a man, am
6.6
tired of seeing my
times 7.
fellow lonely men cry about being alone. I fully admit I myself have done it and am even tired of it. I, for one, can't imagine how the female members feel. Why am I tired of it? Because they say the same stuff. I'm horny and alone. No women will be able to love me because I'm ugly. I don't talk to women and none like me. I was emotionally abused, valid, and don't know how to talk to women. I was cheated on, valid, and I don't feel comfortable with women. The first half where the guy is, in essence, horny alone is so overdone. I'm sorry, guys, but holy moly, if you want to meet women, you need a social life, and if that's all your goal is, then your desperation will precede you. No one likes desperate. So many of my fellow men wallow in loneliness and feel sex and romantic intimacy will get them what they want, and it may be for a time. However, if you don't love you, if you aren't okay with you, if you're not the person you want to love, then you'll likely have issues with the relationship. I'm no expert, but I am a guy, and I can tell you that while being horny and alone sucks, being in a toxic relationship is worse than hell. Work on yourself. Bros, focus on you, but most importantly, put yourself out there and remember that rejection is rejection. Mods, updated for clarity of opinions. Mods, feel free to delete this if it's too toxic. Okay. So, this is a fantastic post. First of all, because I think we're learning as a community, right? So I think this post comes across as more invalidating, harsher. This post, I think, is a little bit more nuanced, in-depth, which is wonderful. And so I do want to talk to y'all today a little bit about this issue. And what I'm sort of talking about is that there are a lot of posts out there, there are a lot of people out there who feel lonely and desperate. They want love, you know, or they want sex, or they want all of the above, they want intimacy. And they feel sometimes they feel incredibly frustrated. They feel like the world is an unfair place. They feel like, you know, they've been dealt a crappy hand of cards, which essentially dooms them to loneliness. They feel desperate. And sometimes when we feel desperate and we don't get something that we want, we really want to blame the whole world for our situation, which isn't necessarily wrong, right? So like, let's just acknowledge for a moment that a lot of things about our life are not determined by us. Like the fact that I am not the son of a billionaire, or that, you know, I had abusive parents, or like all these things are karma. They're not determined by us. So the truth of the matter is that sometimes things, like, not everything that we do is our fault. Not all of our circumstances are our fault. In fact, most of our circumstances aren't our fault. And there's also, there are all kinds of other like karmic things which can make relationships easy for you. So for example, did you grow up with an intact household? Did you learn from your parents how to navigate conflict? Did you learn from your parents how to express feelings? Did you learn from your parents how to respect boundaries? Did you learn from your parents how to lay boundaries? So some of us who grew up with you know, good households, loving households, learn a lot of this stuff intrinsically, and it kind of gets baked in at a very young age. There's also a lot of stuff about self-worth here, because if you don't feel good about yourself, and you're desperate and hungry and horny and alone and you want intimacy, people sort of believe that the desperation carries through, and since I'm ugly and I'm desperate, I'm screwed. No one will ever love me. And those feelings are like completely valid. Even some of the points that they make are completely valid. Now, a lot of times what will happen is at some point, like in this discussion, people will start talking about society, right? They'll say like, society is this, society is that. I've made that mistake before. So let me just start by sort of saying, the way we're gonna address this today is not by talking about society. It's not about like what society does for us or doesn't do for us. These are all valid and important discussions. I'm not saying they aren't. So for example, you know, the role of masculinity is rapidly changing. Men face particular problems, women face particular problems, non-binary people face particular problems. I'm not trying to invalidate any of those perspectives. At the same time, when I see these kinds of issues, what I hear is you're desperate, you're lonely, sure you had a rough life, and the desperation will precede you. And you have to focus on yourself, you have to learn to love yourself. You have to be happy with yourself to enter into a healthy relationship. We hear all these truisms. Does anyone tell us how? Does anyone say, here is how you love yourself? Here are the steps? So here's what I find is the biggest problem that men in this situation run into. Is that I find that it's very difficult for them to think about someone else's needs. Okay? So there are a lot of lonely and desperate men in this situation. And you can sort of say, like, work on yourself first and then you can sort of enter into a relationship. But the truth of the matter is that, like, this is not easy to do. So we have this concept, right, of like bringing yourself up by your bootstraps. And we kind of think about this in the financial sense, that like you can be a self-made millionaire. But the truth of the matter is that, like, it's way easier to have good financial circumstances at the get-go when you launch on your financial journey. That leads to a lot more success than pulling yourself up by the nature of your own, you know, strength and guts and all that kind of stuff. And the interesting thing is that this is true from an emotional and relationship standpoint as well. Like, self-worth is oftentimes given to you, which is weird because it's sort of self-worth, right? But if we think about kids who grow up confident and loved, like, they have a huge advantage. So if you're someone who's lonely and desperate, people say work on yourself first, but like working on yourself, I know it's kind of weird, but is rarely a solo pursuit. So this is the first thing, is we can say work on yourself, and we will teach you how to work on yourself, so don't worry about that. But let's just acknowledge how hard it is to work on yourself. And this doesn't apply to men only, by the way, right? So this is like, sure, there are a lot of men who face this situation, but it's like, if you're someone who is desperate for connection, feeling lonely, feeling horny, craving intimacy, and that desperation precedes you, you come across as clingy, you come across as pathetic, you come across as desperate, you tend to drive people away. That's a really hard thing to overcome, because, like, let's just think a little bit about how does that person overcome that? Sure, you can do this mythical internal work. You can go to India and stay at an ashram for tons and tons of months and years and study to become a monk. But the truth is, even in my own life, like I had a woman who accepted me and, you know, far before I accepted myself. So the truth of the matter is that human beings are community creatures. We're community organisms. We're not like most human growth, just historically, does not happen in a cabin in the woods. Right? Human growth and human connection and like becoming who you are happens with mentorship, happens with like, you know, hopefully parental love. You know, your bros who are there for you, siblings who are there for you, your girls who are there for you. It comes from other people. Even studies of borderline personality disorder and narcissistic personality disorder clearly demonstrate the value of social connection. And we know that social capital, there have been tons of study about the positive impacts of social capital on mental health. So being a part of community that cares about you is huge for your own sense of identity. And so how do we navigate this? Because like the truth is that like, unfortunately, it's very hard to just learn how to love yourself. Just all on your own. So it can be done. But I think if we really look at the way that the majority of people learn how to respect themselves, it actually comes with some interaction from other people. So how do we tackle this problem? The first thing that we have to be super careful about is misdiagnosis, okay? So I don't mean this in a clinical sense, but I mean that oftentimes when human beings come up with, when they face a problem, their mind generates an answer. But the mind isn't really like critical about it, right? So if you think about why am I alone, your mind will say, oh, because I'm ugly or because I'm desperate. And I just reek desperation from my pores. But if we really think about, you know, let's say you've had a set of relationships, you've gone on dates and things like that. The reason that you're alone isn't just what you think in your head. Actually, the best sources of information are going to be the people that you date, right? The tricky thing is that oftentimes we don't really respect boundaries. We don't have good ways of collecting feedback. We don't know how to interact with those people. So we don't really know why they choose not to date us again. And then we formulate our own conclusions. But what are those conclusions based on? They're based on our own biases. It must be because I'm ugly. It must be because I'm desperate. Whereas in my experience, the biggest thing that lonely men tend to miss, and it's, once again, it's not just men, is that they feel desperate, and so they think that that desperation comes through. But oftentimes, it becomes about your own needs. So it's not the fact that you're desperate, it's that you have you're starving so bad that you don't have space to share, right? So you're starving, and then you get a sandwich. And you're so starving that all you can think about is eating that sandwich. And it feels so good to finally get some food. That in that process of you getting your own needs met, you don't have space for another person in that relationship. So when you're starving and you get a sandwich, it's so hard to tear that sandwich in half or give half of the sandwich to your partner. So the first thing that I tend to notice in these kinds of people is that there is a focus on the self, which is not it's not their fault. I don't blame them for having this. Because this is what tends to happen is like, you know, the starving person thinks about eating themselves. Like, why are they in that situation? It's because they're starving. So it's like a natural consequence of being alone, of being starved for affection, for being starved from intimacy. And so then what happens is like when you enter into a relationship, there just isn't space for the other person. So it's not that they're avoiding you because you're desperate and ugly. It's because like there isn't a relationship for them to participate in. There's just needs to be met. And this is how sometimes women feel objectified, because in a sense they are, right? Because like you're busy getting your needs met. And once again, it's not, we're sort of adopting a male to female kind of perspective, but it can be the other way around too. Where like when you enter into a relationship with someone who's starving, there's going to be a period of time where like they don't have the bandwidth to take care of you. And the tricky thing is that sometimes even desperate, lonely men will be on the other side of the table in an equally toxic way, where they enter into relationships where they are the giver, the giver, the giver, the giver, the giver. Because they know, they can empathically, they know what it's like to be alone and starve for affection. The problem is that that's not sustainable. So you're the giver, the giver, the giver, the giver, the giver. And then as you give and you give and you give and you give and you give, your partner potentially starts to feel healthier. And then something falls apart because this is not a healthy, even relationship. So either they become dependent on you or they become independent of you, in which case the only thing that you have to give is what you give. And so the premise of the relationship is lopsided and it can't grow into an equal relationship. So it's really tricky. It's scary. One of the most terrifying things I've ever seen for people who are insecure, who take care of other people in relationships, the most terrifying thing is that the person that I am taking care of will no longer need my help. Because what I bring to them is taking care of them. And if they no longer need me, if they no longer need the care I provide, then they no longer need me. And in the worst situations, this actually turns into sabotage. Where like, I'm afraid you're gonna leave me if you get better. And that's where the relationship has to grow, right? It has to turn into something else. Otherwise it can't survive. So first thing that you've got to be careful about is misdiagnosis. Be careful about what your mind generates and what's the quality of information. Have you had a series of long and honest conversations between people who are like comfortable with sharing this information about what challenges they had with you in the relationship? Because unless you're getting that information from your partner, chances are you really have no idea. And this is where like even after a breakup, you may have like a single conversation or people may be emotional. So I hate you because you did this and you did that. That's not like a real conversation. That's just people venting emotionally. So first thing is be careful about misdiagnosis. The second thing is that if you're in this situation, okay, how can you work on yourself? How can you work on how can you make space for other people? So today what I'm going to talk to you all about is actually really interesting. It's about metta meditation. So I think metta meditation or loving kindness meditation is a particular branch of meditation that's designed to develop gratitude and compassion towards yourself and other people. And the really fascinating thing about metta meditation, we're going to look at a little bit of science, and we're going to look at the substance of metta meditation. What we'll actually see is that all of the problems that these people suffer from are sort of fixed in a nuanced way through metta meditation. So the first thing is that when I'm lonely and desperate, the only person I'm thinking about is myself. That's not really, I don't really consider it selfishness. So I'm not saying that these people are selfish, but it's more just that I'm so preoccupied with myself. Even in the relationship, I'm so preoccupied with myself. Oh my God, am I coming across as desperate? Oh my God, I'm so ugly. This isn't selfishness, it is focus on the self. You can't stop thinking about yourself in these relationships. It's not necessarily a good way. You're not like, oh my God, I'm so beautiful. But literally there is not space in your cognition for another human being. I'm so busy thinking about how ugly I am, I'm not paying attention to the fact that the person that I'm dating is blushing when I give them a compliment and clearly feels that I'm out of their league. Right? Because they may be feeling that. But when I feel like I'm an ugly person, like beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And if I think I'm ugly, then that's what I think I'm going to be. I'm going to completely ignore the other person's perspective. So the first thing that metta meditation does is helps us move outside of ourselves and to think about other people. The second thing that metta meditation does, which we'll talk about in a second, is helps us accept that we are not in complete control of things. So the other damaging thing about sort of lonely, desperate men is that there's a determinism to it, right? I'm desperate, I'm ugly, therefore this is fixed and I'm screwed. And then in the worst cases, what happens is people start to like hate the opposite sex, right? So it's not necessarily just men, because we're sort of seeing this with women too, where we can start to like assume all kinds of things about the opposite sex. So what we need to do is step away from that determinism. We need to step away from the fact that like everything is laid out. We need to encourage some sense of like a question mark when it comes to the future. Because when I'm lonely and desperate and the future is hopeless, a question mark is a movement in the right direction. So we'll see how metta meditation does that. The next thing is that there are all kinds of different aspects from a scientific perspective. So we'll take a quick look at a paper that talk a little bit about these, let me find this right thing. So there are all kinds of things that metta meditation has been shown to do, and these are the things that I truly believe need to be focused on by this population. So if we look at men who have difficulty being empathic, difficulty loving themselves, difficulty loving other people, this is where the attitude of like, you know, the partners that they end up with feel used, right? And why is that? And it's because like sometimes we have difficulty like acknowledging that another person is a person. So let's just take a quick look at a paper. So this is a study from, what page is this for? Okay. So this is, can compassion meditation contribute to the development of psychotherapists' empathy? So this is looking at meditation like metta meditation. It's a really great review. Highly recommend it. But I'm going to highlight this actually. So, since very few studies of loving kindness and self-compassion focus exclusively on healthcare professionals, let us consider the impact of these meditation practices in the general population. So interestingly enough, what I'm sharing with y'all is not about psychotherapists or caregivers, but is about the general population. So self-compassion has been linked to less anxiety and depression. Do you think this will help the lonely, desperate male? I think so. Greater wisdom and emotional intelligence. What are you feeling? What drives you emotionally? What are your emotional needs that get met? Do you think this is important for the lonely, desperate male? I think so. As well as feelings of social connectedness and life satisfaction. Do you think this is important for the lonely, desperate male? Self-compassion also fosters the intrinsic motivation to learn and grow. It promotes health-related behaviors, and it is beneficial for interpersonal relationships. Does this sound important to the lonely, desperate male? So in their study examining the link between self-compassion and concern for the well-being of others, Neff and Pommier observed a modest correlation between self-compassion and empathic concern, but a more robust negative link between personal distress and self-compassion. Okay? So, if we think about the dimensions that, for lack of a better term, the lonely, desperate male needs to improve on. Depression and anxiety? Hell yeah. Social connectedness? Absolutely. You know, emotional awareness and wisdom? Motivation to like grow as a human being? Absolutely. Right? Improve like health promoting behaviors? Like absolutely. And most importantly, removing that negative distress correlation with self-compassion. So the way that you feel about yourself, so we're going to flash back to this post for a second. So the way that you feel about yourself, right? So let's go to the unfiltered one. I'm horny and alone. No women will ever love me because I'm ugly. I don't talk to women. None like me. I was emotionally abused. I don't feel comfortable. This is all that negative distress, which people sort of assume is the desperation that women can sniff. They can smell desperation from a mile away. In my experience, I think that's kind of like it's an unfair characterization of women because in my experience, actually, desperation doesn't necessarily cause people to run away. It just means that you can't form a healthy relationship with them. Not because you're desperate, but because like a healthy relationship requires two people caring about each other. I know tons of people, not just women, who are compassionate and are willing to help desperate people. In fact, my experience has largely been that when someone is desperate, that brings out the best of people in terms of how much we try to help people and support people. And I've talked to lots of women who have tried to date men like this. And what I usually find is that they try really hard. Right? They'll try to be supportive. They'll try to be kind. They'll date them for a while, but there's just such a thick shell of self-loathing that like you just can't fix that. Right? I'm not saying there aren't bad women out there. I'm not saying there aren't bad men out there. I'm not saying that desperation brings out the Dalai Lama out of every human being on the planet. But I think that we have to be a little bit careful about the conclusions that we form. And I know that there are a lot of people, especially in our community, who are fixers, right? Who actually like have their best foot forward when it comes to helping another human being. They find their dharma. They try to help someone, you know, improve their situation. I feel confident about that in terms of our community. But what do we see here? We see this negative distress. And when we have this negative distress, what we tend to find is that it reduces our sense of compassion, it reduces our empathy towards other people. And once self-compassion is gone, toxicity comes out. Once there's a lack of empathy for the person on the other side of the table, that relationship is kind of severely handicapped.